We're going to keep reading, and now we are going to talk about the social hierarchies. Remember, social hierarchies are those triangles where people are divided out. In all river valley civilizations, fewer people were needed to farm, so they became free to do other jobs. New occupations began to develop. People began to make tools, lead religions, and help with work with the government. The type of arrangement in which each worker specializes in a particular task or job is called division of labor. With more people available to do more work, projects got larger and tasks became easier. Construction of buildings, dams, and irrigation systems became the work of many. In Mesopotamia, most of Mesopotamian city-states had a type of government called a monarchy, which meant their city-state was ruled by a king. As certain occupations began to take on different tasks or different ranks or values, this created a social hierarchy. This social hierarchy governed all throughout Mesopotamia. Priests had a very high status and were ranked just below the kings on the social hierarchy. Below the priest on the social hierarchy were skilled craftspeople, merchants, and traders. Trade had a great impact on these ancient river valley civilizations. Traders could travel to faraway places and exchange goods that were important to them. Gold, silver, copper, lumber, and food products, and precious stones were often traded. Farmers and laborers were below traders on the social hierarchy, and at the very bottom were often slaves. And I think we mentioned this in a few classes. Don't think of slaves like what we had in this country. Slavery was a lot of times if a king went into battle and your country or your city state were conquered, you might be forced into slavery if you did not adapt or agree to the new conditions. A lot of times, indentured servants, if you owed taxes, if you had payments that you had to make, you might be forced into slavery for a time period, but that doesn't mean that that was your life forever. Not saying it made it better, but it was different. The Egyptians, they believed that the pharaoh was not just a ruler, but a living god. When good events happened in Egypt, the people were pleased with the pharaoh. However, when bad events happened or occurred, such as a disease or a drought, remember when they would go without water, people would often blame the pharaoh. Egyptian society, and if you didn't know, a pharaoh is like a king, so pharaoh might be a good word to highlight. Egyptian society was divided into a social hierarchy where certain occupations or jobs had different ranks and values. The vizier acted as the main advisor to the pharaoh and ran the day-to-day activities of Egypt for the pharaoh. So here's where you can see their breakdown of people and where their jobs were. High priests controlled the religion of Egypt, while the priests worked under them, taking care of the many temples for all the different gods and goddesses that the Egyptian people prayed to. Scribes were important people. And I have a cool video about scribes we'll probably watch. They were important to Egypt as well, as they were the ones who wrote down the important information for the pharaoh and his government. I can tell you so much more. If you notice our early humans reading, it was 3 pages, maybe 4, because they didn't have a written language. Now you look at this and it's 11 or 12 pages. It's because they had written language. We can say without doubt certain things happen. In India, this is probably the most interesting social hierarchy. Their society was divided into what they call a caste system. So they had an official name for their social hierarchy. And it is a person's place in the caste system, and it was based on birth, occupation, which is your job, or wealth. Aryans, which were people from north of India that came and conquered the lands around the Indus River Valley, were at the top of the caste system, while the non-Aryans were at the bottom. Let's fix this sentence. And yours should already be fixed. The Aryans created what they call a theocracy, or a government led by a priest and king. Look at the social hierarchies for India. Notice how the Brahmins, or the priest, are at the very top. So there is no god, or there is no king at the very top. You have gods up near the top, showing how important religion is to India. Under the caste system, People were expected to follow very strict rules. For example, you could only eat with people from your caste. You could only marry someone from your own caste. You could only perform a job assigned to your caste. You could only live in neighborhoods of your caste. There was no way to move up or down from one caste to another, but through religion. Sorry. You did not have to, if you did not follow these rules, you could be kicked out of your city and your caste. You would become what they called an untouchable or an outcast. An untouchable performed the jobs that no one wanted to do, like cleaning the sewers. Oh, sorry about that. Oh my goodness. Okay, I believe you. Notice above the untouchables, they're not even really part of the caste system. And they were also considered non-Aryans. So I'm probably saying these wrong, but this is Brahmin. This is, I say Kashitara. This would be a Vaishya, a Sudra, and then you have the untouchables. And in China, in early China, the village chiefs were in charge. Families lived in what they called clans. And a clan is very simply the people who you're related to. So have you ever been to a family reunion where you have your family and then your family's family and all those cousins and second cousins and third cousins and people that you're supposed to know but you don't exactly know? That would be like your clan. That'd be your family. So over time, these clans fought each other for control over the land and for power. The clan who was victorious became the rulers of the sections of China. This works for a time period. Then these rulers eventually become kings and they started to establish their own dynasties. A dynasty is when a family rules over a country or a region for a long period of time. The head of the family will be the ruler of the land. When the ruler died, another family member of the family member would take the power, usually the oldest son. When a new family rose to power, a new dynasty would begin. The mandate of heaven. This is something that China had a name for, but a lot of other civilizations also had. This is when the Chinese people believed gave their rulers the right to be king. So they believed that it meant that the gods had blessed the person with the right to rule. You are probably saying, how did they know that? They didn't. But because religion was so important in these ancient times, if you believed or that person believed that the gods chose them and you went against them, then they feared the gods would punish you. They'd punish your city. So it sounds crazy, but they kind of just believed people. And here you can see China's social hierarchy. Eventually, China's society was broken into a social hierarchy. The king and his family were at the top of the social order. Nobles, warriors, and government leaders also had high rankings. The farmers worked hard, but they had little wealth and taxes to claim, and taxes claimed much of what they earned. However, the merchants were actually at the bottom of the social hierarchy. So if you look down here, merchants are pretty low. This was because they produced nothing on their own. Those who produced things were considered to be more important in the society. The social hierarchy changed often as they had new dynasties. So that's something to think about too, is this wasn't like this was it in China for the rest of the time. It would change. Then we're going to talk about this guy right here. This guy's name is Qin, and I know it's a Q, but you say it like a C. So that's Qin Shi Huangdi. And he was the first emperor of China. So no longer kings, now we've moved to an emperor. He created an army and forcefully controlled the different kingdoms, thus uniting China for the first time under the rule of one person. So normally they were divided to different kingdoms, different villages. Qin Shi Huangdi changes all that. He set out to make China more powerful and wealthy. In order to do this, he realized that he had some things he needed to do that needed to be the same throughout the country. For example, he wanted to make everyone use the same money. He created a system of weights and measures for everyone to use, which is going to make trading much easier. The emperor also started projects to improve China and keep No, let's try it again. And others to keep it safe. He chose to unite the many small walls that had been built previously by leaders to keep invaders and barbarians out from the north of China. It is the Great Wall of China. It is a physical feature, a physical barrier that is more than 13,000 miles long, 16 to 26 feet high, 20 feet wide, and he also made sure they had guard posts throughout. So Qin Shi Huangdi connected these little pieces that some kings had started into one massive structure that we have today. So 2 questions. How does the division of labor help people establish a civilization? So remember, it gave me a 4, so I'm going to hit backspace. It helped them to organize people into ranks. It gave people jobs and purpose, and helped to ensure everyone had what they needed to survive. So that's the purpose of division of labor. It divides out the jobs, make sure everybody has a purpose. And then what differences can you see in the social pyramids of Egypt, Mesopotamia? I hope you can see that religion is common in all of them. All civilizations have a social pyramid. And then some differences you might see. India is religious. So dismissal is about to start. Let's say all the civilizations had, let's be correct, let's carry on our tenses. So India was obviously very religious. They had, remember, the caste system. Then you go on and you think about Egypt, you can think about China. You could go on and on about them. But one thing I thought was interesting is China put them at the bottom. I think that's a good answer for that one. Number 5, what is the difference between a monarchy and a theocracy? So monarchy is a king or queen. A theocracy is a religious leader. So in India, with the Brahmin or the priest, that would be an example of a theocracy. And then number 6, what civilization social ranking do you think would have been the best to be part of? Explain your answer. I cannot tell you the answer to that. That is your opinion. So which one do you think was the most fair, maybe the most interesting? That is your answer.